And the president and the CEO of the Canadian Lung Association is here to tell us about the dangers of vaping, especially when it comes to our youth. Let's say hello right now to Terry Dean. Terry, good to have you here.
Hi, Dylan. Great to be here.
Now, obviously, this is a bit of an issue. You've got some statistics on the youth of vaping that are quite staggering.
They are, Dylan, and it doesn't matter what statistic you look at. It's frightening. So we know between 27 and 18, we saw a 74% increase in vaping amongst youth. Recent data from 2019 show us 1 in 5 students in grades 7 to 12 are vaping, and recently 83% are using a fruit or a candy flavor, which is obviously very concerning as well.
That is something else. Okay, so why are children doing this to begin with?
Well, I think children have a tendency to want to experiment, do these types of things. We know that once they try, they're inhaling nicotine, which is one of the most issues that we've had within tobacco, all those kinds of things. So its addictiveness is overpowering, and I don't think they really understand how powerful it is when they're starting out.
Okay, let's talk about some of the reasons, some of the things that make it attractive, I guess. I mean, there's kid-friendly flavoring now, so what does it mean? What does that term mean?
Well, that's one of the challenges. It is kind of a vague term, but there are over 7,000 flavors available in the market in Canada
That's
today.
Incredible.
It's
Wow.
Excessive, I would say, yeah.
That's something. 7,000 flavors.
Yeah.
So they're making it appealing for kids?
We believe it's clearly targeted at children. Certainly we've seen the government more recently act to limit advertising and promotion, which is a great step, but still some of the information that's available online, again, is still something that we would like to see further restrictions on. But the flavors are clearly there to entice children, or youth, I should say, at this point.
And that's one of the ways that they're getting hooked, correct?
No question. But obviously, it's the nicotine and its addictive nature that is really the concern. But I think the flavors are enticing and draw them into wanting to experiment and try. And now you're addicted to nicotine, and that's a huge problem for us.
Okay, now why is vaping so dangerous? I know you're talking about nicotine. We've heard about the dangers of nicotine for years and years and years. Why is vaping, though? Because I'm understanding that it doesn't take long for it to cause terrible effects.
Well, it is a fairly recent phenomenon. A year ago, we weren't having this discussion, so it's really come quite rapidly into the market. So what you're doing, you're taking in a vapor, which isn't a water vapor. It's actually a chemical-based vapor into your lungs. We don't know. Our lungs weren't created to process these types of things. So we don't know much about the long-term effect because it's a relatively new phenomenon. But we've seen recent hospitalizations. We've seen youth die in this case, more so in the U.S. than we're seeing here. But that's problematic from a health perspective. A product that was brought onto the market to be relatively safe is certainly not a harmless product by any means at this stage.
Okay. How can we discourage youth?
Well, I think it's an educational opportunity. Clearly, we're trying to raise awareness with shows like this today, but people need to know about the harms that can be affected if you're vaping today. So there's lots of information. If you look on our website, lung.ca, there are resources for both students, for parents, and for educators. But we really want to have the conversation. People need to know what can happen.
Okay, and you're also obviously hoping that the government steps in?
Well, we know there's some action taking place. As I said earlier, we know they're restricting certainly the advertising and promotion. That's a great first step, but obviously the flavors, as we mentioned before, are problematic. And certainly, the advertising will help, but then the nicotine levels, of course, we want to understand, how are they contributing to the uprise in some of these statistics.
So not only youth, and I know you're here more to focus on youth today, but this is obviously an issue for adults.
I think we all need to be made aware. Certainly, we know that the nicotine makes it a very addictive product. So people who are smoking today, we looked at this as a possible smoking cessation tool to help them stop. But clearly, there are harms that are taking place that we need to better understand. So our message to people is very clear. If you're not vaping today, don't start. Please don't start. If you're using it as a cessation tool to try and stop tobacco use, your end goal should be to stop vaping and to stop tobacco.
How can people get involved then to help you out even further?
Well, certainly, I mentioned earlier, check our website. There's some information there. The government website has a lot of information. You're seeing more advertising. The government has a series of ads going on. But I know a number of health groups like ourselves, the Heart and Stroke Foundation, Canadian Cancer Society, are taking a look at this and certainly trying to provide more resources and information to people.
Okay, and I know the Canadian Lung Association obviously doing great things right across the country, always looking for volunteers, always looking for financial assistance.
We can never have enough, Dylan, so we're grateful for any help that people can provide to us.
Terry Dean, President and CEO, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
For sharing that here with us today. Important stuff indeed. I'm Dylan Black. Thank you for being here as always.